Hello everyone. Tonight, we're going to walk together into something often misunderstood, often oversimplified, something quietly powerful that touches not only temples and monks, but the way we breathe, speak live, and let go. Buddhism isn't something you have to believe in. It's something you begin to see. Imagine this. You're sitting alone in a garden just before dawn. The world is still wrapped in blue-gray silence. There's dew on the grass. Not much is happening, and yet everything is. A leaf trembles. A bird shifts in its sleep. Your breath rises and falls. In this moment, you realize you're not looking for answers. You're learning to notice, and that is where Buddhism begins. But here's the reality check. It's easy to get lost in the word religion. We hear it and think of structures, rules, right and wrong labels, and belief. But Buddhism, in its essence, isn't about believing in something external. It's about turning inward. It's about discovering the nature of your mind, understanding your suffering, meeting reality not as you wish it to be, but as it is. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And if you'd like, share your location and your local time in the comments below. It's always beautiful to see where we're gathering from tonight. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on the fan for some soft noise, and let's start our journey together tonight. Let's begin gently. The Buddha never asked us to follow him out of faith. He invited us to look, to listen, to live with awareness. When he was asked, "What are you?" he didn't say, "God, prophet, philosopher." He said, "I am awake." Awake to what? To the truth that life contains suffering. That we chase what cannot last. That we resist what is already here. But also to the possibility of peace, of clarity, of freedom. This is Buddhism, not a fixed doctrine, but a living path, a gentle invitation. You don't need to chant in a language you don't understand. You don't need to memorize ancient texts. You don't need to convert or give up your name or your culture. You simply begin to pay attention to the way the mind pulls and pushes, to the moments when tension rises, to how you treat yourself when you're alone, to how you respond when things don't go your way. And you begin to ask, can I see this clearly? Can I meet this with kindness? Can I let this moment be enough? This isn't religion in the traditional sense. It's not about worship. It's about direct experience. The Buddha didn't say, "Believe me." He said, "Come and see." Eopassiko, an invitation to see for yourself. You don't need blind faith. You need curiosity. There's a story of a group of villagers who came to the Buddha confused. So many teachers were telling them different things. Who should they believe? The Buddha didn't say, "Believe me." He said, "Don't believe anything just because it is said. Don't believe anything because it is written. Don't believe anything because it's tradition. Test it for yourself." That's the beauty of the Buddhist path. It honors your intelligence. It trusts your direct experience. It allows space for questioning. So tonight, as you listen, you don't need to agree. You don't need to hold on to anything. You only need to be here, to breathe, to feel, to explore. Think of Buddhism like a raft. It's not a destination. It's a way across. You don't worship the raft. You use it to cross the river. And once you've crossed, you can gently set it down. This journey is not about gathering beliefs. It's about letting go of what causes suffering. Letting go of clinging. Letting go of hatred. Letting go of delusion, so that what remains is simple and light. A breath, a step, a clear mind. You begin where you are. You take refuge, not in blind hope, but in presence. In the Buddha, not as a person, but as a symbol of awakening. In the Dharma, not as scripture, but as the truth that reveals itself in your life. In the Sangha, not just monks and nuns, but the community of all who walk the path with sincerity. You are not alone. Every moment you choose awareness over autopilot compassion, over reactivity, honesty, over avoidance. You are practicing Buddhism. It's not something you are, it's something you do, something you live. And that means it's always accessible. Whether you're sitting in meditation or standing in line, whether you're calm or falling apart, whether you're joyful or aching. The path is not about escaping life. It's about entering it more deeply, with eyes open, with a heart that learns again and again how to stay soft in a world that so often hardens. This is where we begin, not with definitions, not with dogma, but with a breath and an invitation to wake up, just like the Buddha did. You're still here, sitting in the soft light of this moment, and now we begin to walk gently beside a man who once sat beneath a tree and didn't get up until everything changed. Before the world called him the Buddha, he was simply Siddhartha, a name, a young man, a seeker like you. And before the seeking, he was born into comfort, into protection, into a palace built not just of stone, but of avoidance. His father, a king, wanted him to know no sorrow, so Siddhartha's life was filled with music and fragrance gardens and feasts. Suffering was kept away like a shadow, just beyond the torchlight. But truth always finds its way. One day, Siddhartha asked to leave the palace, and what he saw on that journey would become the seed of a revolution, not of armies, but of awareness. The four sights: a sick man, an old man, a corpse, and a wandering monk. 4 simple encounters, but each one was a mirror. Each one broke the illusion. Siddhartha saw, perhaps for the first time, this body will grow ill. This body will grow old. This body will one day die. But there is also a way to meet these truths without fear. That 4th sight, the monk wasn't a symbol of escape. He was a symbol of engagement, of someone who had chosen to walk toward the truth rather than away from it. And that image settled in Siddhartha's heart like a seed in fertile soil. So he left the palace, not because he was ungrateful, but because he wanted to understand. He left his wife, his newborn son, his title, his inheritance. He stepped barefoot into the world with a single intention: to find a path beyond suffering. Can you imagine that letting go of everything the world says you should cling to, not as rejection, but as radical love? Love for truth. Love for all beings who, like him, tremble under the weight of pain and impermanence. He studied with teachers. He practiced with ascetics. He denied the body food rest comfort, believing that perhaps in weakening the body, he would awaken the spirit. But even that was not the way. And one day, emaciated and near collapse, he accepted a bowl of rice from a village girl named Sujata. It was a simple act, a quiet offering, and it changed everything. Because in that moment, Siddhartha realized extremes are not the path. Neither indulgence nor denial brings freedom. And so he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, resolving not to rise until he saw clearly. The night grew long. The mind tempted him with fear, with doubt, with distraction. And still he stayed, until at last, just before dawn, he saw the nature of all things. He saw how suffering arises, how it clings, how it ends, and how to walk the path that leads away from it. He awoke not to a fantasy, not to bliss, but to truth. And from that moment on, he was no longer Siddhartha. He was the Buddha, the awakened one. But let's be clear, he didn't become something other than human. He became fully human, fully present. And he spent the rest of his life not in solitude, but in service. Walking dusty roads, meeting kings and beggars alike, teaching not with fire and brimstone, but with parables and pauses. His words weren't always about gods or heaven. They were about the mind, the heart, this moment, and the freedom already within it. He said, "I only point the way. You must walk it yourself." He didn't claim perfection. He didn't build temples. He simply lived the truth he had seen one step, one breath, one teaching at a time. And tonight, you walk beside him, not in robes, not in ceremony, but in the quiet willingness to see what is real. The Buddha's life isn't a legend to be admired from afar. It's a mirror, a reminder that awakening is possible not in some distant future, but right here in your life, in the way you breathe when you're hurting, in the way you pause before speaking a harsh word, in the way you choose kindness when it's hard. This is how the Buddha walks again, through you. So as the night deepens and the story settles, let the image stay with you. A man sitting beneath a tree, unmoving, quiet eyes open, not escaping life, but finally entering it. You don't need to leave your life behind. You only need to stop turning away and begin to look gently at what's true, because somewhere within your own Bodhi tree is waiting. And the moment you sit, the moment you become still, it begins to bloom. The image still lingers of a man beneath a tree, unmoving, eyes open, surrounded by silence and shadows. But in that silence, something extraordinary happened. He didn't escape the world. He awoke within it. So tonight we sit quietly beside the Buddha, not as worshippers, not as followers, but simply as those who wish to see what he saw. What did he awaken to? He didn't discover a new God. He didn't invent a doctrine. He saw into the heart of reality and found three simple truths: suffering, impermanence, no self, not beliefs, not commandments, just the nature of things revealed when the mind is still. These are called the three marks of existence, the fingerprints of reality. They are not punishments. They are not flaws in the design. They are simply the way things are. Let's begin with the first dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more precisely, unsatisfactoriness. You feel it when you want more than what is. When a moment slips through your fingers, when even joy is tinged with fear because you know it won't last. Dukkha is the crack in the cup, the tension in the smile, the longing that shadows every pleasure. The Buddha didn't say life is only suffering. He said that everything conditioned, everything built from parts, is vulnerable to it, because everything is changing. Which brings us to the second truth, anicca, impermanence. Everything shifts. The seasons, the breath, the people you love, even your thoughts. Nothing stays. Nothing is solid. Nothing can be held forever. This isn't bad news. It's just news we've forgotten how to hear. Impermanence is why nothing can completely satisfy. And impermanence is also what makes healing possible. No matter what pain you carry, it will not last. No matter how tight the grief, it too will loosen. And yet we suffer because we try to hold on. We try to make the temporary permanent. We cling to what's leaving. We resist what's arriving. and all that clinging wraps around something even deeper, anatta, no fixed self. This can be the hardest truth to see, because we spend so much time building me, my story, my opinions, my wounds, my role. We carry that bundle like armor. But the Buddha looked closely and saw there is no single thing you can point to and say, "This is me always." The body changes. The feelings change. The thoughts, the memories, the reactions, they all shift. So what is left? Awareness. The one who notices. The one who listens. The one who sits gently observing like the Buddha beneath the tree. You are not your sadness. You are the space that holds sadness. You are not your joy. You are the one aware of joy, letting it rise, letting it pass. No self doesn't mean nothing exists. It means nothing is fixed. It means you are free to change, to soften, to let go of identities that hurt, to stop clinging to roles that no longer fit, to stop fighting impermanence and start flowing with it. These three marks suffering impermanence, no self. They are not theories. They are mirrors. They reflect back what you already know. And when you see them clearly, something opens. Not despair, not fear, but peace. Because the more you understand impermanence, the more you cherish this moment. The more you understand no self, the more gently you treat yourself and others. The more you understand dukkha, the more compassion you have for all beings who struggle just like you. This is what the Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree. And this is what you are invited to see, not to believe, to see. Ehopassiko, come and see. You don't need to memorize these truths. You only need to notice how every moment is shifting, how every breath is a release, how every sorrow has its own ending, and how every self you think you are is just a wave on the ocean of being. When you stop clinging to the wave, you begin to feel the sea. That is the freedom the Buddha spoke of, not a heaven after death, a clarity in life, a stillness that moves with the world, not against it. So tonight, let these truths settle into you, not as doctrine, but as light. The Buddha didn't hand you something to carry. He showed you how to put things down, and in that space, you begin to see what he saw. Not a world to escape from, but a world to love. Gently, wisely, with open hands. You've begun to see it now, the shape of suffering, the pulse of change, the soft outline of self that isn't as solid as you once thought. And tonight, we step a little closer to the first truth the Buddha taught after his awakening. He looked at the world, not with judgment, but with great compassion, and he said, "There is dukkha. There is unsatisfactoriness. There is discomfort. There is sorrow. Not because life is wrong, not because you're doing something wrong, but because of the nature of things. You felt it in the disappointment after joy, in the tension before sleep, in the feeling that even on the best days, something is missing. This isn't a flaw. It's a call to look deeper. The Buddha wasn't being pessimistic. He was being honest. Imagine a doctor gently placing a hand on your shoulder and saying, "I know what this pain is. You're not imagining it. Let's understand it together." That's what the first noble truth is. It's not a diagnosis. It's the beginning of healing. But to heal, we must first acknowledge what hurts. So ask yourself quietly as you breathe, where does dukkha live in you right now? Maybe it's the ache of loss. Maybe it's the worry of not being enough. Maybe it's the restlessness of always reaching for something just out of sight. The Buddha named many forms of dukkha. Birth is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. Illness is dukkha. Death is dukkha. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair, dukkha. Being with what we don't want. Being separated from what we love. Not getting what we desire. Dukkha. Even the changing of things we enjoy carries dukkha. Because deep down, we know they won't last. This doesn't mean joy is wrong. It means clinging to it creates the ache. So the Buddha didn't tell us to avoid happiness. He showed us how to stop turning happiness into a trap by recognizing its nature, by letting it be light like mist, not something to grasp, but something to receive and release. You might feel resistance rise here, a quiet voice saying, "But I want things to last. I want this to stay. I don't want this to end." That's okay. We all feel that. Even the Buddha felt that before he awoke. But he didn't ask you to stop feeling. He asked you to see how resistance deepens suffering and how acceptance begins to soften it. There's a story of a monk who came to the Buddha in tears. His teacher had died. He felt lost. And the Buddha said to him, not "Don't cry, not "Let it go," but simply, "This is the nature of all things. What is born will die. What arises will pass." He wasn't dismissing the pain. He was holding it in the light of truth. You can do the same. You don't need to push away your sadness. You don't need to silence your fear. You only need to look at them gently and say, "This too is part of being human. This too belongs." When we allow dukkha to be seen not as a failure, but as a thread in the fabric of life, it stops being a wound we hide and becomes a doorway we enter. And through that doorway, freedom waits. Because dukkha is not the whole truth. It's just the beginning. It's the first noble truth, not the last. The Buddha laid it down as a foundation so that nothing in you would feel too broken, too messy, too far gone to be part of the path. Your sorrow is not a detour. It is the gate. And once you step through it, you begin to see. Suffering is not the enemy. It's the teacher. It shows us where we cling, where we resist, where we've mistaken the temporary for the eternal. And once we see that, we can begin to let go, gently, tenderly, not all at once, but one breath, one truth, one moment at a time. So, let the first noble truth settle in you tonight. Let it remind you that your pain is not a mistake. It is the place the path begins. You are not broken for feeling it. You are brave for naming it. And in that naming, you are already awakening. You've begun to name your pain, not with shame, not with fear, just honesty. You've stepped inside the first noble truth, and now gently, the Buddha takes your hand and leads you to the second, the origin of suffering. It's not hidden. It's right there in the everyday moments, the reaching, the resisting, the tensing. The Buddha said it is craving that gives rise to suffering. This craving isn't only desire in the usual sense. It's deeper, more subtle, more constant. In Pali, it's called Tanha, literally thirst. A thirst that arises again and again, whispering, "This moment isn't enough. I need more. I need it to be different. I need to keep what I love. I need to avoid what I fear." And because we believe the thirst we suffer, because no matter how much we drink, we're never satisfied. You've felt it, haven't you? That hunger for just one more good moment. That panic when something good begins to fade. That quiet ache when something bad won't go away. And underneath it all, a voice saying, "If only I could control this." But the Buddha saw, it's the clinging that causes the ache, not the pain itself, not the joy, but our refusal to let things be what they are. Craving comes in many forms. Craving for sensual pleasure, a taste, a touch, a sound that delights. Craving for existence to become someone to be recognized, to last. Craving for non-existence to disappear, to numb out, to escape. And in each case, there is a grasp, a tightening, a push, or a pull. And that motion inside the heart is the birthplace of dukkha. So what do? Not suppress it, not shame it, but see it. Watch how craving rises like a wave. Watch how it peaks. Watch how it fades if you don't feed it. This is the practice. To notice, to pause, to ask, what am I craving right now? Can I feel it without obeying it? You don't have to fight the craving. You just don't have to bow to it. There's a story in the suttas of a monk named Sona. He tried so hard to awaken that he practiced until his feet bled. Still, he didn't find peace. So the Buddha asked him, when the strings of a lute are too tight, can it play no, said Sona? And when they're too loose, also no. And when they're just right, then it plays. And the Buddha said, so too in practice. Not too tight, not too loose. Craving tightens. Mindfulness loosens. Craving says, I must have this or I will suffer. Wisdom says, I can be with this and not cling. You may notice it in small ways. Wanting someone to answer your message faster. Wishing the past had gone differently. Longing for the future to arrive already. And in each moment, an opportunity arises not to reject the craving, but to recognize it, to breathe with it, to soften around it, like a fist slowly unclenching, like ice slowly melting. This is how freedom begins, not in big moments, in quiet ones. You feel the thirst, and you don't drink. You feel the urge, and you don't run. You stay. You listen. You breathe. And the craving passes. Maybe not always easily, but it does pass. The Buddha didn't say craving was evil. He said it was natural, but not necessary. You can live without obeying every impulse, and in that space between craving and clinging, peace begins. Because the heart no longer driven by thirst learns how to rest, to enjoy without gripping, to let go without loss, to meet the moment just as it is. This is the second noble truth, not a rule, a realization. Suffering isn't random. It's not punishment. It's not personal. It's born from craving. And the moment you see that clearly, you begin to loosen the knot. Not by force, by awareness, by kindness, by letting the wave rise and fall and not be followed. So tonight, if you feel the thirst arise, don't be afraid. Just greet it with a soft smile. Ah, you again. And let it pass like a cloud across the moon. Stillness will return. It always does. Now you've seen it, the thirst. That longing, that reaching, that subtle ache inside that says, more please or not this. And you've begun to recognize it, not as failure, but as a habit the heart picked up long ago. You've started to notice how that habit creates suffering. And so tonight, we arrive at the Buddha's third noble truth. The one that opens the window, lets in the breeze, and reminds you there is a way out. This is what the Buddha saw beneath the Bodhi tree as dawn broke over the earth and the night shadows withdrew. Suffering can cease, not through denial, not through numbing, not through wishing things were different, but through understanding and release. He called this freedom Nirodha, the cessation of craving, the extinguishing of the fire. Imagine a lamp that's been burning all night. It has flickered with desire, flared with frustration, flamed with fear, and then you gently blow it out. That's what Nirodha means. Not annihilation, not blankness, but peace. The kind of peace that arises when there's nothing left to chase, nothing left to push away, nothing left to prove or fix or become. The Buddha said, whatever arises from a cause can cease when the cause is removed. And the cause of suffering is craving. So when craving is released, suffering ends. Not all at once, not forever and perfect, but in moments, breath by breath, layer by layer. And those moments become your freedom. Think of the last time you let go, truly let go of something that had been hurting you. Maybe it was a thought you'd clung to, a regret, a harsh self-judgment, a story about how things should have gone. And then somehow, you saw through it. You dropped it. And in its place came space. That's Nirodha. That's what the Buddha is pointing to. He's not asking you to suppress your emotions. He's not asking you to rise above them like a stone Buddha. He's asking you to see their nature, to see how they arise, to see how they fade, and to notice the space between, because that space, that stillness is already here. You don't have to make it. You only have to stop filling it. The path isn't about gaining something. It's about letting go of what blocks the light. Suffering ends when we no longer need everything to be different. When we stop clinging to the pleasure, stop running from the pain, stop insisting that life owe us anything. We just breathe. We just feel. We just allow this moment to be enough. The Buddha didn't say this was easy, but he said it was possible. And he knew, because he walked it himself. He knew the fire of craving. He sat with it until it dimmed. He saw that freedom isn't something far away. It's the simple act of being here without grasping, of saying, this is what is, and I can meet it with peace. You don't have to renounce the world. You only have to let go of needing the world to be different before you can rest. And that kind of letting go isn't cold, it's warm. It's the hand that no longer grips, the heart that no longer tightens, the breath that no longer strains. And in that warmth, you begin to taste what the Buddha called nibbana, not a place, a state of being, the unbinding of the heart, a quiet beyond wanting, a love without clinging, a joy that doesn't depend on conditions. This freedom doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care with open hands. It doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you feel without drowning. And slowly, the mind begins to settle. The heart begins to trust. And the body begins to soften. This is the third noble truth. Not a promise of perfection, a glimpse of peace. And that glimpse is enough to begin. Because once you've tasted even one moment of non-clinging, you know the way back. And even when you forget, even when craving returns, you remember there is a way through. And I've seen it, and I can walk it again. That's how awakening unfolds. Not in a blaze, but in flickers, in breaths, in 1,000 small releases, and each one brings you home. So tonight, let go just a little. Not of everything, just one thing. Maybe it's an expectation. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's a thought that's grown too heavy. Set it down just for now. And feel the space it leaves behind. That space, that's Nirodha. That's freedom. That's your nature revealed. You've seen the pain. You've touched the cause. You've breathed in the possibility of release. And now, the Buddha offers the fourth noble truth, the way forward. It's not an idea. It's not a hope. It's not a command. It's a path. The noble Eightfold Path. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, tangled forest. The way is unclear. The air is thick. The trees crowd together. You don't know where to go. And then someone hands you a lantern, not to light the whole forest, but just enough to take one step. This path is like that. It doesn't demand that you fix everything. It simply shows you how to walk. The Eightfold Path is the Buddha's map, not toward becoming a better version of yourself, but toward discovering the peaceful clarity that's already within you. It has 8 limbs. But don't be overwhelmed. They're not stairs you have to climb. They're more like spokes on a wheel. Each one supports the others. Together, they turn the wheel of practice, moving your life with more stillness, more kindness, more clarity. Let's walk through them gently tonight. Just feel their shape. Let them touch your awareness like wind through leaves. Right view. Not right as incorrect in an argument, but right as in aligned with truth, with reality, with the nature of life. Right view means seeing things as they are, not through the lens of fear or craving. It's the understanding that suffering exists, that craving causes it, that letting go is possible, and that there is a way. This view isn't something you adopt. It's something that deepens. The more clearly you see the world, the less you're caught by it. Right intention. Once you begin to see clearly, your heart naturally turns toward what is wholesome. You no longer act from hatred. You no longer wish harm. You no longer cling to desire. Instead, your intentions become gentle. You begin to move through life like someone crossing a quiet stream, carefully, lovingly awake. Right speech. Your words begin to follow your heart. You speak what is true, what is kind, what is useful. And sometimes you simply stay silent when silence is the greater compassion. Right action. You live in a way that doesn't harm. You stop killing anything. You stop stealing what isn't freely given. You stop using your body to bring harm to yourself or others. And your life becomes a gentle offering instead of a ripple of harm. Right livelihood. You begin to ask, how do I earn my way in the world? Not just what brings money, but what supports peace. What doesn't rely on harm, on deceit, on exploitation. You choose work that aligns with your values, even if it's simple, especially if it's simple. Right effort. You no longer try to force awakening, but you also don't drift in laziness. You make effort, not harsh, not pushing, but like tending a garden. You water the wholesome seeds. You gently remove the weeds. You encourage what is skillful and let go of what clouds the mind. Right mindfulness. You remember to return to this breath, this body, this feeling, this thought. You observe without judgment. You rest in awareness, like a bird on a still branch. Mindfulness isn't focus. It's gentle remembering, a returning to now. Right concentration. As mindfulness deepens, the mind becomes steady, like a candle flame undisturbed by wind, like a mountain unmoved by storm. You enter states of calm not to escape the world, but to understand it more deeply. You rest in stillness, and in that stillness, wisdom grows. This is the path, not one of punishment, not one of rigid rules, but one of practice. Practice that meets you where you are. Practice that unfolds not in grand gestures, but in quiet decisions. The choice to breathe before reacting. The choice to speak with care. The choice to pause and see clearly. The Eightfold Path is not a ladder. It's a circle. And wherever you begin, you are already walking it. You don't need to master all 8 limbs. You only need to return to them again and again. They are your companions now, your silent guides, your gentle way through the forest. So tonight, let the path enter your breath, not as a task, not as a test, just as a way to be. Let it soften your thoughts. Let it cradle your grief. Let it guide your next step, even if that step is rest. Because this path is not about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are. When nothing is pulling you away from yourself, the path is under your feet now. It doesn't ask you to run. It doesn't demand perfection. It only whispers, walk gently. Begin here. And so, the first step unfolds, right view. What does it mean to see clearly, not in the eyes, but in the heart? In the way you meet the world each day, not with confusion, but with presence. Right view isn't about believing the right ideas. It's about turning toward life with understanding, seeing that all things change, that clinging brings suffering, that letting go opens space, that the path isn't somewhere far away, it's right where you are. But we don't always see clearly, do we? Often we see through a lens clouded by habit, a mind trained to react, a heart shaped by fear or longing. We don't just see what's here, we see what we expect. We add stories, we assume, we resist, and then we suffer. So right view begins by noticing how the mind adds layers to reality. You wake up late? What's the first story? I'm failing again. I can't get it right. Today is ruined. But the only true thing is that you woke up late. Everything else is added. Right view says, can you pause? Can you strip the story away? Can you see what's really here? A body, a breath, a new moment. That's the clarity the Buddha pointed to. Not cold objectivity, but compassionate seeing. Seeing how suffering begins, not out there, but in here. How you create it, how you can stop feeding it. When someone speaks harshly, right view asks what's happening in them, what's reacting in me. It doesn't ask you to excuse harm, but it invites you to see beyond blame, to understand cause and effect, to respond wisely, not react blindly. When joy arises, right view says, this is beautiful, and it will pass. Not to kill the joy, but to free you from fear. You can love without clinging. You can enjoy without needing it to last. That's freedom. And when pain comes, because it will, right view reminds you, this is not punishment. This is not forever. This too is a wave. You see the wave. You feel it. But you no longer believe you are the wave. That's clarity. Not distance, but wisdom. Right view also includes karma, the law of cause and effect. You begin to see every thought shapes the mind. Every word plants a seed. Every action ripples outward. Nothing is meaningless. And so you live more carefully, more gently. Not out of fear, but because you see the path you're weaving step by step. Right view doesn't mean having no opinions. It means holding them lightly. It means staying curious, staying open. Asking often, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this causing suffering? And slowly, your vision changes. You stop seeing enemies. You see people in pain. You stop seeing failure. You see conditions. You stop seeing separation. You see connection. Right view opens the heart to compassion, not as an ideal, as a response to reality clearly seen. So how do you practice it? You start by noticing. What view are you holding right now? About yourself? About others? About this moment? Is it rooted in fear? In craving? In illusion? Can you soften it? Can you look again? Can you breathe into a wider truth? This is not a one-time shift. It's a lifetime of remembering and forgetting and remembering again. Each time you remember, the fog lifts a little, and what you see is not a perfect world, but a real one. And in that realness, there is space for compassion, for peace, for walking with open eyes. So tonight, let yourself rest in right view, not as a concept, but as a gentle seeing. See your own heart, not with judgment, but with kindness. See your mind not with shame, but with curiosity. See this moment, not with resistance, but with presence. Right view is not something you reach. It's something you return to, like breath, like stillness, like a clear pool that reflects everything as it is no more, no less. Let that clarity hold you now. Soft, steady, enough. You're seeing a little more clearly now. The mind is not so clouded. The breath not so hurried. The heart perhaps a touch more open. And from this clarity of view, something quiet and beautiful begins to emerge. Intention. Not just thoughts, not just plans, but that subtle energy inside you that directs where your life flows. Tonight, we walk with right intention. The second spoke on the wheel of the path. If right view is seeing the world with clarity, then right intention is how we begin to move within it with purpose, with care, with a gentle inner compass. The Buddha spoke of 3 kinds of right intention: intention of renunciation, intention of goodwill, intention of harmlessness. At first, these might sound like lofty ideas, but don't worry, we'll hold them gently. Let's begin with renunciation, not as rejection, not as denial, but as release. You felt this, the relief when you stop chasing something that never satisfies, the lightness when you let go of something you thought you needed. Renunciation isn't giving up joy, it's giving up the endless grasping for it. It's that moment when you turn off your screen and sit in silence, when you stop refreshing the feed and return to your breath. When you say, maybe I don't need more to feel whole. Maybe I already am. That's renunciation. It's the courage to live simply, to choose peace over distraction, to say no to craving, not out of punishment, but out of love. The second intention is goodwill metta. This is the gentle wish, may all beings be well. May they be safe. May they be at ease. It's the softening that happens when you remember that every person is carrying something, that even those who hurt you are tangled in their own suffering. Goodwill doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean letting go of boundaries. It means not adding more hatred to a world already aching. It's that tiny shift from, why are they like this, to, I hope they find peace. And that shift changes everything. You don't have to like everyone, but can you stop wishing harm? Can you wish freedom instead? The Buddha said, hatred does not cease through hatred. Only through love does hatred cease. This is an eternal law. And so right intention calls us back not just to kind acts, but to a kind heart. Finally, we come to the third intention, harmlessness or compassion. This is the willingness to walk through the world without leaving scars, to pause before speaking, before acting, before judging, to ask, will this cause harm? Is there a gentler way? It's compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. When the voice in your mind turns cruel, can you soften it? When you fail, can you be gentle, right? Intention is not about controlling every thought. It's about planting seeds. Plant a seed of kindness, of clarity, of release, and the mind will follow. You become the kind of person who moves deliberately, who walks like they're holding something sacred, because you are your life and the lives you touch. This path is not abstract. It's lived in the choices you make. To return the sharp word with silence, to offer the benefit of the doubt, to forgive slowly, but truly. You might ask, how do I know what my intentions really are? The answer is simple but not easy. Listen. Before you speak, pause. Before you act, breathe. Before you judge, feel. What's driving this fear, pride, restlessness, or kindness, clarity, peace? Right intention doesn't arise from force. It arises from understanding. The more you see clearly, the more your heart naturally begins to lean toward what's wholesome, toward letting go, toward love, toward compassion. It's like a tree growing toward the sun. You don't need to force it. You only need to create the conditions. Right view, right intention, the first two limbs of the path, vision and direction. The eyes that see, the heart that turns toward the good. And from here, the rest of the path begins to unfold. So tonight, as you lie quietly in this gentle space, ask yourself, what do I intend for this life? What direction am I facing? What would it feel like to walk with a lighter heart? You don't need to know the destination. You only need to know that you wish to walk with care. And from that wish, everything begins to change. You've paused. You've listened. You've begun to feel your own intention gently rise like mist over still water. And now we arrive at something deceptively simple, yet deeply transformative right speech. We speak every day. To others, to ourselves, out loud, in our minds. And every word carries a ripple. The Buddha understood this deeply. He knew that language is not just noise. It's power. It's direction. It's the bridge between inner life and outer world. So he taught us to speak as one would handle a delicate bowl of water, carefully, intentionally, with awareness of what it spills into the world. Right speech is the third step on the noble Eightfold path. And like the others, it's not about perfection. It's about presence. About turning the mirror toward the mouth and asking, what am I truly saying? And why the Buddha offered 4 simple guidelines for speech. Speak what is true. Speak what is kind. Speak what is useful. Speak at the right time. Let's breathe into these one by one. First, speak what is true. Not just factual, but sincere, real, not masked in manipulation, not twisted to gain approval, not shaded in subtle lies that keep the ego comfortable. This includes how we speak to ourselves. Are you truthful with your own heart? Or do you constantly say, I'm not enough. I should have done better. No one cares. These are not truths. These are patterns, habits, stories. And right speech invites you to gently rewrite them. To say, I am here. I am trying. This moment is enough. Second, speak what is kind. Kind does not mean soft or fake. It means non-harming. You can speak firmly and still be kind. You can disagree and still be kind. You can hold a boundary and still be kind. Right? Speech doesn't mean being silent when something is wrong. It means speaking from compassion, not from reactivity. Can you feel the difference? When anger speaks, it burns. When love speaks, it warms. And kindness always leaves behind space, not scars. Third, speak what is useful. Ask yourself, is this helpful? Will this move the heart toward understanding? Will this create more clarity? Or is it just noise fueled by ego anxiety or restlessness? Sometimes the most useful thing to say is nothing. Silence, when rooted in mindfulness, can be more healing than 1,000 words. You don't always need to reply. You don't always need to explain. You don't always need to be heard. Peace often begins with restraint. And finally, speak at the right time. Even true, kind, useful words, spoken at the wrong moment, can land harshly. Right speech is attuned to readiness. Is the other person open? Is your heart steady? Is this moment asking for words or for listening? Right timing is not about delay. It's about deep listening. You speak not just from truth, but from connection. And this changes everything. Because the words you speak become your path. They build relationships. They build inner climate. They build who you are becoming. Every sentence is a brick. Are you building refuge or a wall? Are you building bridges or barriers? Right speech isn't a moral checklist. It's a way of living in harmony with yourself and with others. Think of a conversation you've had recently. What did you say? What lingered? What healed? What harmed? There's no shame in the answer, only awareness. And with awareness comes choice. Right. Speech also means noticing how much we speak. In silence, so much is revealed. Not speaking out of fear, but out of mindfulness. Giving space. Letting others speak. Letting understanding rise not from debate, but from presence. Even online, this matters. The comments you leave. The messages you send. The words you type without thinking. They too are your practice. So what would it mean to speak as if every word was a seed, because it is? And tonight, as you lie here in stillness, maybe a new intention blossoms to speak with care, to speak with courage, to speak only when the heart is ready to offer peace. You won't always get it right. That's okay. You'll raise your voice sometimes. You'll say something you regret. You'll stay silent when you wish you hadn't. But even these are teachers. Each word, spoken or unspoken, is part of your awakening. So let your mouth become a temple. Let your words become prayers. Let silence become your teacher. And when you speak again, let it be from the calm within you. Let your voice be a balm, not just to others, but to yourself, because you're listening now. And words begin there. Now, from the stillness of your words, we begin to walk. Not in theory, not in abstract thought, but into the tangible world of everyday action. Because after right speech comes the fourth limb of the path, right action. This is where your values meet your footsteps, where intention becomes movement, where awareness flows into how you live, breathe, and touch the world around you. And the Buddha taught, let that touch be gentle. Right. Action means living in a way that causes the least harm and offers the most care. It's not a performance. It's not morality imposed from outside. It's ethics as compassion in motion. It's how you move through the world when your heart remembers that every being you meet is just like you, trying, hurt sometimes, afraid sometimes, longing for peace. Right. Action isn't about being perfect. It's about remembering to return again and again to love. So, what are these actions? The Buddha spoke simply, clearly, with no need for complexity. He gave us 3 basic commitments. Do not kill. Do not steal. do not misuse sexuality. That's it. Not to restrict you, but to protect you. To protect others. To create the space where awakening is possible. Do not kill is not only about violence with weapons, it's about any form of intentional harm. The mosquito you swat out of irritation, the harsh words that cut like a blade, the indifference that lets others suffer when help was possible. Right action means choosing life, choosing protection, choosing reverence for even the smallest being. It's a quiet vow. May my hands cause no harm. May my presence bring no fear. You may not always succeed, but each moment is a chance to begin again. Do not steal is not only about theft. It's about not taking what isn't freely given. That includes time, attention, credit, energy. Right action here asks, am I living with integrity? Am I taking more than I offer? Am I living as a guest in this world, or as if I own it? And when you live with respect, something inside you settles. Because honesty is a form of peace. The third commitment, not misusing sexuality, is about honoring trust, honoring bodies, honoring emotions, honoring your own heart. It asks, is this love? Or is this grasping? Is this care? Or is this escape? Right action here means not using others as a means to an end, not turning intimacy into harm, not manipulating or betraying for the sake of desire. It's not about shame. It's about sacredness. The body is not an object. It's a temple of breath sensation, vulnerability, and truth. To touch it, yours or another's, is to enter holy space. And so you walk with care. You choose honesty over indulgence, presence over compulsion, real connection over empty pursuit. These three actions may sound basic, but they are a foundation. A life built on them becomes a vessel that can hold insight, love, and peace. Because if your actions are misaligned, your mind will not rest. The guilt, the fear, the regret, they return again and again to disturb your stillness. Right action is the clearing of that path. It's how you let your days become your practice. Washing the dishes with care, feeding someone with presence, saying no to shortcuts that betray your values, and more than just avoiding harm. Right action becomes the practice of generosity, not just what you don't do, but what you offer. A kind glance, a gentle touch, a quiet yes when someone needs help. Every action becomes an offering, not to prove anything, but because compassion moves you. Because the heart, when free of craving, naturally wants to serve. So ask yourself, tonight, what kind of presence do I bring into a room? What do others feel after being around me? Is my action aligned with my heart? You won't always get it right. Sometimes you'll stumble. Sometimes you'll act from fear or habit or reaction. That's okay. Because the path is not linear. It spirals. It returns. And each return is a deepening. Right action isn't the end of the path. It's just one of the many ways it lives through you. In your gestures, in your choices, in the way you move through a world that needs more gentleness. So as the night deepens, let this be your intention, to walk softly, to act slowly, to live with care. And when your actions align with your heart, peace follows, naturally, quietly, like a shadow that no longer needs to be feared. You've spoken with more care. You've walked with more gentleness. And now we come to something even more grounded, perhaps, the most practical piece of all right livelihood. The Buddha understood that most of us cannot live outside society. We need to work. We need to survive. We need to earn our way. And he never said you must become a monk to walk the path. He simply asked, can you live in the world without harming it? Right. Livelihood is about the way you sustain yourself and how that affects others. It asks, how do you earn your living? And does that livelihood support or undermine your path to peace? The Buddha spoke very directly. He said, avoid professions that cause harm. He listed 5, dealing in weapons, dealing in living beings like slavery or trafficking, butchery or killing animals, selling intoxicants, selling poisons. And though times have changed, the principle remains. If your work depends on the suffering of others, it's not right livelihood. That's not punishment. That's wisdom. Because the mind cannot settle if the hands are causing harm. Even if the money flows, even if the status rises, even if the world applauds, something in you knows when your work is not clean. And that knowing becomes a disturbance. So the Buddha invites us to examine, not with guilt, but with curiosity. Is my work aligned with my values? And beyond the obvious harm, you can also ask, does this job feed craving? Does it manipulate people's fears? Does it extract more than it gives? Or does it nourish? Does it support? Does it heal? Does it uplift? Right livelihood doesn't require a perfect job. It requires consciousness within whatever you do. Maybe you're a teacher, a cook, a driver, a coder, a shopkeeper, an artist, a farmer. The question is not what your title is. The question is, can I do this with integrity? Can I do this without causing harm? Can I do this and still sleep peacefully at night? And if not, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to change. Or, if you cannot change right away, perhaps you begin to look more closely. How can I bring more mindfulness into this role? How can I plant seeds of change even within a system that's not fully aligned? Sometimes, right livelihood is a journey, a long road, a series of shifts. But even the desire to live more ethically is already a part of the path. Because livelihood is not just external, it's internal too. What thoughts are you feeding? What intentions are you investing in? The mind has its own economy, and every day you spend your energy on something. So ask, is what I'm investing in leading to suffering or leading to peace? Maybe it's not just your job that needs reflection, but your relationship to it. Are you clinging to success? Are you trapped in identity? Are you burning out for praise? Right livelihood means working with balance. Enough to live, enough to give, without sacrificing your sanity, your health, your truth. It asks, what is enough? That question can change your life. Because the world will always ask for more hours, more results, more achievement. But the path of peace asks for less grasping, to do work with presence, to receive what comes with gratitude, to offer your effort without letting it define your worth. You are more than your job. You are more than your productivity. You are a being on the path to awakening. And every act, even the mundane ones, can become part of that awakening if they are done with awareness, with honesty, with care. So tonight, rest with this question: how do I sustain myself? And is it nourishing or depleting the world around me? There's no one answer, only a direction, only the soft tug of conscience and clarity. And if that tug is pulling you toward change, trust it. You don't need to leap. You only need to take one small, true step. That is enough. Because when your livelihood supports life, not just yours, but all life, then your work becomes practice. Your practice becomes offering, and your offering becomes peace. You've paused to reflect on how you live, not just what you do, but how you do it. And now, the path asks you to look inward again into something deeper than action. Effort. This is where we meet the next limb of the path, right effort. At first, the word effort might feel heavy. You may imagine striving, pushing, forcing. But the Buddha did not speak of effort as struggle. He spoke of energy, gentle, steady, wise. The kind of effort that nurtures a flame, not one that fans a wildfire. Right effort is not about doing more. It's about doing with intention. It's how you tend the mind, how you encourage what is wholesome, and release what is unwholesome. Think of your heart as a garden. Effort is how you care for it, not by pulling every weed in panic, not by planting flowers and demanding they bloom tomorrow, but by returning each day with water, with patience, with love. The Buddha described 4 kinds of effort. Prevent unwholesome states from arising. Abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. Cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. Maintain and deepen wholesome states that already exist. Let's walk through them one breath at a time. First, prevent what causes harm. This means noticing the conditions that lead to anger before it catches fire. Noticing the signs of craving before they become decisions. Noticing when your energy is dipping into old patterns of judgment, comparison, harshness. Right effort, here is a kind of inner listening. It's preventative medicine for the mind, and when those unwholesome states have already arisen, we move to the second effort, gently letting them go. Not by fighting them, not by pretending they're not there, but by seeing them clearly and choosing not to feed them. When irritation arises, you might say, I see you. I know this story, but I will not walk that path again tonight. You breathe, you return. You don't make it personal. That's right effort. It's not a battle. It's a soft turning. And when the mind is still, the heart more open, you practice the third effort. Nurture what is good. Joy, generosity, loving kindness, mindfulness, curiosity, stillness. These are seeds. Right effort waters them. You don't wait for them to appear. You create the conditions. Maybe by reading a Dharma book. Maybe by sitting in meditation. Maybe by walking outside and whispering thank you. You don't need a grand ceremony to practice right effort. You only need to ask, what brings peace? What opens my heart? What uplifts the mind? And then do that. And when those states have already blossomed, you tend them. That's the fourth effort. Keep the good alive. If joy is present, don't rush past it. If calm has come, don't abandon it for another distraction. If compassion has risen, let it linger. This effort is not about intensity. It's about consistency. The steady rhythm of showing up for what matters most, even when it's boring, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching. Because you're watching, and that watching is part of the practice. Right effort doesn't mean forcing a peaceful mind. It means making space for it to appear. And when it does, you greet it like a dear friend. You don't cling. You don't chase. You simply enjoy and trust that it will return. Because the heart knows its way home if you stop dragging it elsewhere. So tonight, reflect on this gentle discipline. What are you feeding? What are you ignoring? What are you growing? Every moment is an act of effort. The effort to stay, to soften, to breathe, to begin again. You don't have to do it all at once. The smallest effort made with sincerity is already a turning, a leaf falling, a breeze shifting, a light changing direction. that is enough, you are enough. Right effort doesn't ask for more than that. Just this: tend the garden, stay with the breath, encourage the good, and let the rest gently fall away. The garden of your mind is beginning to take shape now. You've been pulling weeds, planting seeds, and learning how to care for what grows within you. And tonight, we place the next stepping stone on this path: right mindfulness. If right effort is the tending, then right. Mindfulness is the presence that lets you truly witness what's there. It's the quiet art of being here, fully, clearly, gently. Right mindfulness doesn't mean concentrating hard. It doesn't mean blocking out thoughts or feelings. It means noticing what arises without being pulled into it. It means watching the storm come and go and remembering you are not the storm. You are the sky. The Buddha described mindfulness with beautiful simplicity. He said, mindfulness is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and grief, for the attainment of the right path, for the realization of nibbana. That's a lot to promise from a single practice, but it starts with something very small: your breath. Can you feel it? Right now. The in-breath, the out-breath. Soft, natural, reliable. It asks nothing from you. It only invites you back, again and again. This is the beginning of mindfulness. Not a special state, just presence. The Buddha taught that mindfulness can be placed in 4 main areas called the 4 foundations of mindfulness body. Feelings, mind, mental objects or phenomena. Let's walk through them like gentle steps across a quiet floor. First, mindfulness of the body. You notice the breath, the posture, the steps you take, the tension in your shoulders, the warmth in your hands. You return to the body not to judge it, but to anchor yourself in the present. Because the body is always here, even when the mind wanders. When you are with the body, you are no longer lost. Second, mindfulness of feelings. You begin to recognize what arises in your experience, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, not as your identity, but as passing weather. You might feel joy and simply note, pleasant. You might feel anxiety and note unpleasant. You might feel stillness and note neutral. This helps you stop clinging to the good or fearing the bad. It's not indifference, it's clarity. The third foundation is mindfulness of the mind itself. You begin to see the state of your mind like a sky in motion. Is it cloudy, clear, dull, excited? You don't try to fix it. You just see it. And in seeing it, it begins to calm. The fourth foundation is mindfulness of mental phenomena. Thoughts, teachings, principles. This is where you begin to observe the patterns. You watch how craving arises, how anger feels in the body, how thoughts repeat themselves, how impermanence touches every sensation. You're not analyzing, you're witnessing. Like watching waves reach the shore without needing to stop them or ride them. Right mindfulness is not a duty, it's a gift. The gift of truly living this moment, not being lost in what was, not racing toward what's next. Just this breath, just this sound, just this silence. This is the space where wisdom grows. When you are mindful, you stop reacting blindly. You start responding wisely. A pause replaces a snap. A breath replaces a shout. A smile replaces a sigh. And even when you lose mindfulness, because you will, You remember that coming back is part of the path. Each time you return to the breath, you water the seed of awakening. And over time, you begin to notice you are not drowning in thoughts like before. You're watching them pass. You are not consumed by every emotion. You're learning how to sit beside them. You are not chasing each pleasure, fearing each pain. You are learning to remain. That is mindfulness. Not perfection, but presence. Not escape, but intimacy with life. So tonight, return to the breath. Place your attention on the rising and falling, the air touching the nose, the chest expanding, the belly softening. No need to force it. Just be with it, as you would with a friend, or a child, or someone you love. And perhaps in this quiet attention, you'll realize you are learning how to love this life, not for what it gives, not for how long it lasts, but for the gift of being awake within it. That is right mindfulness. And it's already within you. You are practicing it now, with each breath, with each word you hear, with each moment you return. You've breathed. You've returned. You've sat in the gentle company of the present moment. And now, the final spoke of the Eightfold Path turns quietly into view, right concentration. It's not a word we use often outside meditation circles. And when we do, it often brings up images of straining to focus, of mental pressure and fixed attention. But in the Buddha's path, right concentration is not about tension. It's about absorption. It's about resting the mind in stillness so deeply, so peacefully, that it no longer flinches at every sound, every thought, every passing wave. Right concentration doesn't force the mind into silence. It creates the conditions in which silence naturally arises. And from that silence, something beautiful begins to unfold: clarity, joy, equanimity, peace. The Buddha called these deep states of meditative stillness jhanas, and though the word may sound technical, their essence is simple. They are stages of quiet, the kind of quiet that glows from within, the kind you might feel lying beneath stars, or walking alone in early morning mist, or watching your child sleep. Not because the world is silent, but because your mind has stopped fighting. That's right concentration. The ability to rest in what is, fully, without needing it to change. But let's not rush to mystical terms. Let's return to the breath. Because all concentration begins here, not with control, but with gentle gathering. You sit, you feel the breath. You return when the mind wanders, not angrily, not forcefully, but like a parent guiding a child back to center. Again and again you return, and something happens. The breath deepens, the thoughts slow down, the heart softens, not because you've achieved something, but because you've stopped chasing something. You've let the mind do what it's rarely allowed to do. Be still. Right. Concentration doesn't mean you stop thinking forever. It means you learn to rest beneath thought, to let thought come and go like clouds passing across a wide open sky. At first it's hard. The mind resists. The body fidgets. The thoughts shout louder. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you soften, the shouting becomes whispering. The whispering becomes humming. And the humming fades into quiet. And in that quiet, a kind of joy arises. Not the jumpy joy of excitement, but a stable joy, a calm joy, a joy that doesn't depend on anything. Because in that moment, you are not needing, not grasping, not escaping. You are simply here, fully, That is right concentration. And it's not just for the meditation cushion. It's for the kitchen, the sidewalk, the conversation, the waiting room. Any moment can be a meditation if you are truly there. You listen fully. You eat slowly. You walk like the earth is sacred beneath your feet. This, too, is concentration. And it gives birth to something rare in this world, presence without effort. You're no longer split between 5 thoughts. You're no longer reacting from habit. You're simply awake. And that wakefulness is the cradle of wisdom, because from stillness, the mind sees more clearly. From stillness, the heart knows what matters. From stillness, compassion rises naturally, because the boundaries between you and the world soften. The Buddha once described concentration like a still pond. When the water is agitated, it reflects nothing. But when it's calm, it shows the moon. Your mind is that pond. And in stillness, it reflects the truth. So tonight, let yourself sink into that stillness, not to escape, but to remember that beneath all the noise, you are already whole. You are already home. No striving, no fixing, just resting, breath after breath, silence after silence. And as the mind quiets, let this be your prayer. May I find peace and stillness. May I find clarity and calm. May I remember that nothing needs to be added, only witnessed, only received, only loved. This is the 8th step on the path, and yet it feels like a return, because concentration brings you back to the beginning, to the breath, to the body, to the heart. And from here, the path begins again, softer, wiser, deeper, and always, always yours to walk. You've now walked the full circle of the noble Eightfold Path. Each step view, intention speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration, has brought you closer, not to something far away, but to something within. And now, with the silence of stillness still resting gently around you, we return to something the Buddha saw so clearly the night he awoke beneath the Bodhi tree, the 3 marks of existence. These are the quiet truths that shape everything you experience. They are not beliefs. They are not rules. They are simply how things are. And once you begin to see them, really see them, the heart softens, the mind opens, and suffering begins to unravel naturally. We've touched them before, but tonight we sit with them fully. Let them unfold again slowly, like petals in the morning. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self. Let's begin again with Anicca impermanence. Everything changes, not in theory, not as a poetic idea, but in the most intimate, direct way. Your breath rises and falls. Thoughts appear and vanish. Emotions swell and fade. People enter your life and leave. Bodies grow and age. Moments bloom and disappear. And yet we forget. We cling. We grasp. We beg things to stay or to go faster. And in that refusal to let life move, we suffer. But when you remember impermanence not with fear, but with awareness, something shifts. You begin to cherish what you have. You stop assuming anything is guaranteed. You learn to say thank you to the fleeting moment. Even when it's hard, you might whisper, "This will pass. This joy will pass. This pain will pass." And in that whisper is peace. Because you are no longer trying to hold the river. You are learning how to float. Next, we return to dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. This is the quiet ache behind so much of human effort. The subtle tension of wanting more, the disappointment of what we hoped would fulfill us, the fear of losing what we love, not because we're broken, not because life is cruel, but because we want permanence in a world that is made of change. Dukkha reminds you that no condition can offer lasting peace. Not wealth, not status, not even relationships, because all of them shift. That doesn't mean we stop loving. It means we love without illusion. We live with open eyes. We let go, while still caring. That's what transforms dukkha, not by avoiding life, but by walking through it with wisdom. And finally, we rest with anatta, not self. This is the deepest, most subtle truth, and maybe the most misunderstood. It does not mean you don't exist. It does not deny your presence or your story. It simply says what you call you is not one solid, unchanging thing. The body changes. The emotions change. The thoughts change. So where is the permanent me? The Buddha looked and saw there is awareness, there is experience, but no fixed core. And this is not frightening. It's freeing. Because if there is no fixed self, then there is no fixed suffering. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not your role or your mistake or your name. You are the open space in which all these things arise and pass. You are awareness itself, the sky, not the weather. And when you see that, even for a moment, the tightness begins to loosen. The need to defend, to prove, to chase, it begins to dissolve. Because you are not a thing to fix. You are a field to rest in, a breath to return to, an openness that cannot be owned or broken. This is what the Buddha saw. Not a philosophy, but a truth that liberates. These three marks, anicca, dukkha, anatta, are not meant to be recited. They are meant to be noticed. In your breath, in your loss, in your joy, in your tears, in your stillness. They are the shape of reality, and when you see them gently, without fear, the world begins to shine differently. Because you are no longer fighting it, you are walking with it, and that walking is peace. So tonight, let the marks rest in your awareness. Everything changes. Nothing outside you can complete you. And you are not a thing to hold, but a space to open. This is the truth. And the truth is safe. You've seen through the patterns now. The flowing, the fading, the false solidity of self. You've begun to let go of what you never needed to hold. And yet perhaps one lingering question remains. If I'm not bound by a fixed self, then what guides my life? What shapes the path I walk? Tonight we meet the quiet, powerful answer the Buddha offered karma. Not as punishment, not as superstition, but as the simple law of cause and effect woven into every breath, every choice, every moment. Karma means action. It is the intention behind the action that matters most. The Buddha said, "It is volition intention that I call karma. Through intention, we act. Through action, we become." This is not fatalism. This is not cosmic judgment. This is liberation. Because it means your life is not dictated by luck or fate or some external force. Your life is being shaped moment by your own intentions. That means you are not trapped. You are not stuck. You are not doomed by your past. You can begin again, right now, with this breath, with this choice, with this thought you are holding in your heart. Karma is not what happens to you. It's how you respond to what happens to you. It's not about controlling the future. It's about understanding the present. Because the present moment is always a field of seeds. Every word you speak is a seed. Every act of kindness or cruelty, a seed. Every judgment, every gesture, every breath of mindfulness or distraction, a seed. And those seeds will ripen. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now. Not as reward or punishment, but as natural fruit. Just like rain falls. Just like a tree leans toward the light. The Buddha's teaching on karma is not to make us fearful. It's to awaken us to our power, to help us see that our minds are not empty vessels. They are gardens. And we are always planting something. So ask yourself gently, what am I planting today? What kind of mind am I feeding? What kind of future am I shaping? Not through force, but through care. Karma also teaches responsibility without blame. You are not the cause of everything, but your actions are your own. You are not to blame for your suffering, but you can meet it with compassion and plant something new in its place. This is karma at its most beautiful, not as guilt, but as possibility. Even your sorrow can become soil for compassion. Even your anger, if seen clearly, can become a turning point. Even your fear can become a doorway to courage. Because karma is not fixed, it is fluid, like water, taking the shape of the container it's poured into. And mindfulness is the container. When you are mindful, you create space around your actions. You see the craving before it becomes words. You feel the irritation before it becomes harm. You notice the grasping before it becomes a choice. And in that space, a new karma is born. A karma of peace, of clarity, of healing. You don't have to fix your past karma all at once. You only need to stop creating more suffering right now. That is enough. Because karma also teaches patience. Not everything ripens quickly. Sometimes the good you do today won't bear fruit until years from now. Sometimes the pain you feel now was planted long ago. But the garden always changes, and with care, the weeds lessen. The flowers grow stronger. The fruit becomes sweet. So tonight, as you rest in the softness of your own breath, let this truth settle into your bones. You are shaping your life, not through control, but through attention, through kindness, through intention. This moment is a seed. This thought is a seed. This act of listening, of pausing, of walking the path is a seed. And already something is growing. A deeper calm, a wider compassion, a gentler way of being. That is karma too. Not dramatic, not distant, but here, in the silence, in the stillness, in you. You've walked gently through karma now, no longer as superstition, but as a living truth, breathing, unfolding with every choice you make. And with that clarity, another teaching naturally follows. A teaching not of single lives, but of cycles. Tonight we arrive at one of the most profound and mysterious corners of the Buddha's path, rebirth, and the wheel of becoming. It sounds like a myth, a concept for faraway times. But the Buddha didn't teach it to mystify you. He taught it to help you see how the mind moves, how clinging repeats, how freedom is found not in another life, but in how you live this one. Let's begin not with belief, but with a question. Have you ever felt like you've lived something before? Not in another lifetime, but in this one again and again. The same argument, the same mistake, the same craving. That is samsara, the cycle of becoming. We're not just talking about being born and dying. We're talking about how moment after moment you become. With every desire clung to every habit unexamined, every identity tightly held. The self recreates itself. You become the angry one, the fearful one, the one who always needs approval, the one who never rests. And then it happens again. That cycle is rebirth, not mystical, but mental. And once you begin to see it not just as philosophy, but in your own life, you begin to loosen your grip. You begin to understand what the Buddha meant when he said, with ignorance as condition, volitional formations arise. With formations, consciousness. With consciousness, name and form. This is dependent origination, the 12 links, not to confuse you, but to gently trace the chain of suffering, to show how one small misunderstanding, believing this is me, becomes an entire world of dukkha. You don't need to memorize all the links tonight. You only need to notice how one leads to the next. A thought arises. You cling to it. You identify with it. You react from it. You suffer. And then you do it again. But here's the key. It doesn't have to continue. Because at every link you can pause. You can breathe. You can see. And the wheel stops turning. That's what the Buddha saw. Not that rebirth is inevitable, but that it is preventable. Not by force. Not by escape. But by awakening. And awakening happens here. When you recognize this is craving. This is clinging. This is not me. And something inside you lets go. The Buddha taught that if the causes end, the results end. If you stop feeding craving, it fades. If you stop identifying with thought, it passes. If you stop grasping at me and mine, the whole wheel of becoming begins to slow. And in that slowing, peace. You begin to live not in reaction, but in presence. Not in repetition, but in release. The idea of rebirth across lives may or may not speak to you. That's okay. The Buddha himself said, whether you believe in future lives or not, the path still works. Because the real question isn't where will I be reborn, but how many times have I already been reborn today? How many times has the self collapsed into fear, into pride, into grasping? And how many times can you let it dissolve? That's the practice. That's the freedom. To see the cycle, to step off the wheel. Not by fleeing the world, but by seeing clearly, by understanding. This is how suffering begins, and this is how it ends. It begins in the illusion of permanence, identity, control, and it ends in presence, compassion, letting go. So tonight, don't try to believe in rebirth. Just watch the next moment you cling to. Watch the next identity you assume. Watch the next I that forms around emotion. And see if just for a breath you can let it go and feel what remains, not nothing, but freedom. You've witnessed the cycle now, the wheel that turns and turns with craving at its core. You've seen how easily the self reappears, how quietly suffering repeats itself, and in that seeing something new begins to stir. A quiet wish, not just to understand the path, but to live it. Tonight we step gently into that living path through one of the Buddha's simplest and most beautiful teachings, the 5 Precepts. They are not commandments. They are not imposed. They are invitations. Invitations to live in a way that supports clarity, compassion, and peace. They are like a fence around a tender garden, keeping out the forces that would disturb your stillness. The Buddha didn't say, obey these or be punished. He said, live like this, and suffering will lessen. So what are these 5 precepts? They are simple commitments to refrain from killing, to refrain from stealing, to refrain from sexual misconduct, to refrain from false speech, to refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. Let's sit with each one, not to judge ourselves, but to understand how each is a door to freedom. 1. Refrain from killing. This is more than not taking life. It is the choice to protect life, to honor life, to feel a softening in your chest when you see suffering, not just in humans, but in every creature. It's the way you move around a line of ants on the sidewalk. The way you pause before swatting the fly. The way you speak so your words don't crush someone's spirit. It's choosing not to kill anything beautiful within you or around you. 2. Refrain from stealing. Again, this goes beyond taking things that aren't yours. It's a question of integrity. Do you take more than you give? Do you withhold when generosity is needed? Do you claim attention that isn't truly earned? When you live honestly, something relaxes inside you. The breath becomes fuller, the nights more restful, the heart more open, because you're not pretending, you're aligned. 3. Refrain from sexual misconduct. This is a tender one. It's not about shame. It's about respect. Do you honor others' boundaries? Do you speak with honesty in intimacy? Do you use sexuality as escape or as connection? Right conduct here isn't about suppression. It's about sacredness. It's remembering this body is a vessel. So is yours. Let us not harm each other in our hunger. 4. Refrain from false speech. You've already felt the power of right speech, but this precept asks you to take it deeper, to become so honest that even your silences carry truth. It's not just about not lying. It's about not manipulating, not twisting, not hiding behind cleverness. It's about speaking in a way that heals, even when it's hard, even when your voice trembles, because truth, gently spoken, is always an act of love. 5. Refrain from intoxicants. This one, too, is often misunderstood. It's not about moral purity. It's about clarity. It's about protecting your mind, your one precious, vulnerable, awakening mind, from what clouds it. Not just alcohol or drugs, but the intoxication of distraction, of constant stimulation, of scrolling for hours until your heart forgets what it feels. This precept is a kindness. It says, your mind is worth protecting. Your clarity is sacred. Don't numb it. Don't blur it. Nourish it. These 5 precepts are not burdens. They are supports. They are the foundation for a peaceful life. Not because they make you better than anyone, but because they keep you from harming yourself. When you live like this, you stop being afraid of the world, because you're no longer a source of danger to yourself, to others. You become trustworthy, and in that trust, stillness grows. You won't live these precepts perfectly. No one does. But perfection isn't the point. Returning is. Each time you forget, you remember. Each time you stumble, you get up. Each time you cause harm, you make amends. That too is the path. So tonight, as you rest, let these precepts gently echo in your heart. May I protect life. May I live honestly. May I honor intimacy. May I speak truthfully. May I guard my clarity, not to impress, not to perform, but because peace feels good, because your heart knows what's true. And now your life begins to align with it. Now that your steps are lighter and your life begins to align with your heart, we turn inward once again, not to analyze, but to open. Tonight, we come to one of the most radiant jewels on the Buddhist path, loving kindness. In Pali, it is called Metta, a word so gentle, so simple, that it slips into the heart like sunlight through curtains. It means benevolence, friendliness, unconditional goodwill, not romantic love, not attachment, not sentimentality, but the quiet, powerful wish, may you be well, that's all. And in those 4 words, a whole world begins to change. The Buddha taught metta not as a concept, but as a practice, something you cultivate like warmth in the body, something you direct like a beam of soft light. You start where you are. You sit, you breathe, and you begin. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. You may notice resistance, a quiet voice that says, I don't deserve this. That's okay. Just notice it and gently return. Because this practice isn't about what you deserve. It's about retraining the heart from judgment to care, from fear to warmth, from self-hatred to gentleness. Once your own heart softens, you expand. You bring someone you love to mind, a friend, a teacher, a child, and you offer them the same wish. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. You're not fixing them. You're not solving anything. You're offering a blessing. And in that offering, you are blessed. The mind softens. The breath slows. The edges melt. And then you stretch further. You send loving kindness to someone neutral. Maybe the cashier, the neighbor you barely know, a stranger you passed on the street. No reason, no reward, just the quiet prayer, may you be well. And then when you are ready, you do something brave. You bring to mind someone difficult, someone who's hurt you, someone you don't understand, someone who triggers that tightening in the chest, and you say, may you be well. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart isn't there yet. Because loving kindness is not approval. It is not forgetting. It is the refusal to add more hatred to a world already aching. It is choosing healing over bitterness, connection over division, peace over punishment. You may need to do this slowly. You may need to start with just one person. That's enough. Because each time you offer metta, a part of you is transformed, not into someone better, but into someone freer. Freer from anger. Freer from the illusion of separation. The Buddha said, as a mother would protect her only child, even at the risk of her own life, let one cultivate a boundless heart toward all beings. This is metta. Boundless, unconditional, unshaken. It doesn't ask anything in return, and yet it gives everything. Your sleep deepens. Your reactivity lessens. Your days feel lighter, not because life has changed, but because your response has. You're no longer caught in the push and pull of judgment. You've chosen to bless instead, even when it's hard, even when it's small. A look, a breath, a whisper, may you be well. So tonight, lie down gently. Place a hand over your heart and let this simple blessing rise. May I be well. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Now extend it like ripples across a still lake to someone you love, to someone you don't know, to someone who's hurt you, to all beings everywhere, seen or unseen, near or far, joyful or suffering, human or animal. May all beings be well. This is not fantasy. This is a practice, one breath at a time, and over time, it becomes your way of walking through the world, not as someone trying to be good, but as someone who has remembered their nature, and whose nature is kindness. You've begun to radiate kindness like warmth from a steady flame. But there's something else. The Buddha quietly encouraged us to cultivate, something just as powerful, just as necessary: compassion. In Pali, it's called Karuna, where loving kindness is the wish, may you be well. Compassion is the tender echo, I see your pain, and I wish for its end. Compassion is not pity. It is not feeling sorry. It is not collapsing in sadness. It is the strength of a soft heart, the courage to stay with suffering, not to fix it immediately, but to witness it fully. The Buddha did not teach compassion as something to perform. He lived it. Over and over, he turned toward the hurting. He paused. He listened. He offered his full presence, even in silence, even without answers. That is compassion, and we all carry it. You felt it when a child cried, when a friend broke, when a stranger's suffering caught you off guard and stopped you in your tracks, that opening in your chest. That's compassion. The willingness to care, the ability to hurt alongside another without drowning. And in Buddhist practice, compassion is not just spontaneous, it is trainable. Just like mindfulness, just like loving kindness. It begins with noticing suffering, not pushing it away, not turning your face, not numbing, but letting the truth of pain rise in your awareness and soften your edges. You don't need to carry the world's pain. You only need to be present with what is here now. And from there, compassion begins to flow to the people you know, to the people you don't know, to yourself, especially yourself, because often the hardest compassion to offer is inward. So much judgment, so much guilt, so much should. But the Buddha taught, you can search the whole world and not find anyone more deserving of your love and compassion than yourself. That's not selfishness. That's truth, because if your heart is closed to your own pain, it cannot open fully to anyone else's. So we begin here, right now. Place a hand over your heart, breathe, and gently say, I see your pain. I care. I am here. Let this be your practice, not only in meditation, but in conversation, in conflict, in small moments when someone's face changes and you pause to notice. Ask yourself, can I stay? Can I soften? Can I offer presence instead of advice? Can I let pain be held instead of solved? This is how compassion becomes a way of life. It becomes the way you move in the world. You walk a little slower. You listen a little longer. You react a little less quickly. You begin to feel the thread that connects all beings. The thread of wanting to be safe, to be understood, to be free from suffering. You realize their pain is not separate from mine. When they hurt, I hurt. And when I offer compassion, healing flows both ways. There's a phrase in the Buddhist texts, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes. This is compassion's voice. It doesn't deny the suffering. It doesn't wallow in it. It says, I see it. I care. And I walk alongside you. Tonight, let that be your vow. Not to take away every hurt, not to rescue everyone, but to be the presence that doesn't turn away. And when your own heart aches, offer that same gaze inward. Say, dear one, I see your pain. I am here. You don't need to carry this alone. Compassion doesn't require eloquence. It doesn't require answers. It only asks for closeness. And closeness begins with breath. So breathe now. Inhale awareness. Exhale tenderness. And let the circle of compassion widen until it holds all beings, and most gently of all yourself. You've opened your heart to compassion, softening around the edges of pain for others and yourself. And now, as the path unfolds beneath your feet, we arrive at a precious place, equanimity. In Pali, it is called Upekkha. Equanimity is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is the deep calm that holds joy and sorrow in balance. Imagine the vast ocean. Storms come and go. Waves rise and fall. But the ocean remains steady, vast, unshaken. That's equanimity. It's the heart's ability to be fully present without being pulled this way or that. The Buddha described it as one of the four immeasurables, the same beautiful qualities as loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy. Equanimity is the quiet friend who whispers, "All things pass, all things change, and I remain." It's the wisdom that neither clings to pleasure nor recoils from pain. You don't have to believe in fate to practice equanimity. You only need to notice your habitual reactions. When something good happens, do you clutch it? When something hard arrives, do you push away? And can you just for a moment breathe into the middle space? The space between craving and aversion, between grasping and rejecting. That space is equanimity. It holds both the bright and the dark. It sees things clearly without being overwhelmed, because it knows this, too, will pass. And when you rest in equanimity, the mind finds freedom. Not numbness, not apathy, but peace. A deep, steady peace. That isn't shaken by praise or blame game or lost praise or insult. Imagine yourself as a mountain. Rain falls, wind blows, but you remain steady. This steadiness is not born from hardness. It is born from softness, from openness, from acceptance. And acceptance is the doorway to freedom. When you practice equanimity, you stop being a puppet of your feelings. You become the stage upon which they dance. You don't fight the emotions. You don't cling to the pleasant ones. You simply let them be, and you watch them move. This is not easy. It takes practice. It takes patience. And most of all, it takes self-compassion. Because the mind often resists equanimity. It wants to grab on. It wants to push away. But the more you return, the more the resistance softens. And slowly you find your center, the place inside where you can rest, no matter what the world brings. So tonight, breathe deeply into that center. Let go of the need to control or change, and allow yourself to be exactly as you are, perfectly human, perfectly whole, and deeply at peace. Equanimity is waiting. You only need to come home. You've reached a profound stillness now, a quiet heart balanced like a calm lake. And so, we come to one of the most familiar yet mysterious practices on the Buddhist path, meditation. Often, when you hear this word, you might imagine sitting cross-legged in silence trying to stop all thoughts. But the Buddha never asked for silence as a goal. He invited you to meet your mind, to listen deeply, to become intimate with your experience. Meditation is not an escape from life. It's a way of entering it more fully. You don't have to empty your mind. You only need to watch what's already there. Thoughts, emotions, sensations. They rise. They fall. Like waves on the ocean. You don't fight them. You don't chase them. You simply observe. And through that observation, the mind begins to soften. The breath deepens. The heart opens. And a kind of healing unfolds. There are many ways to meditate. Some focus on the breath, others on a word or phrase. Some use visualization, others use movement or walking. The Buddha taught mindfulness meditation as a foundation, simply noticing what's happening, with kindness, with patience, without judgment. And when the mind wanders, which it will, you gently bring it back. Again and again. This is the practice. Not a test of willpower, but a return to yourself. Over time, Meditation reveals your true nature, not as a fixed identity, but as clear awareness, the space in which all experiences arise, the light that shines behind every shadow. The Buddha said, "Just as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise are not moved by praise or blame." Meditation cultivates this wisdom. It trains you to be steady, not because you suppress emotions, but because you allow them to arise and pass without being swept away. Imagine sitting beneath a tree. The wind stirs leaves around you. You notice the rustle. You notice the sky. You notice the breath in your chest. And in this noticing without needing to change a thing, you find rest. That rest is meditation. It is available to you anytime, not just when you sit, but when you walk, when you eat, when you listen, when you speak, and even when you suffer. Because meditation is the heart's refuge, the place you come back to again and again. It is a gentle invitation. Come home. Tonight, let this invitation be yours. No pressure, no expectation, just an open door and your first step. One breath, one moment, one soft return. The gentle invitation of meditation has brought you close to your own heart. And now, as the evening deepens, we approach a place of refuge, a shelter for the weary traveler on the path. This is the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. You may have heard these called the three refuges. They are not idols to worship. They are not distant concepts. They are living realities to rest in. The Buddha is the awakened one, not just the historical figure who sat beneath the Bodhi tree, but the awakening potential within you, the one who sees clearly, the one who loves without clinging, the one who walks the path of peace. The Buddha is the light of awareness already shining inside. The Dharma is the teaching, not words on a page, not dogma to follow blindly, but the truth revealed through practice, the way of understanding suffering, the path to freedom. The Dharma is the gentle guide that shows you the way home. The Sangha is the community, not just monks or nuns, but anyone who walks the path with sincerity, those who support you, those who inspire you, those who remind you that you are not alone. Together, these three jewels are a refuge, a safe place to land when the winds of life blow hard. You take refuge not out of fear, but out of trust. Trust in the awakening within. Trust in the path. Trust in the connection between all beings. To take refuge is to say, I am not alone. I have a path. I have companions. And in that declaration, a deep peace arises. Because even when the road is hard, you carry the light of the Buddha. You follow the wisdom of the Dharma. You walk with the Sangha beside you. This refuge is always available, no matter where you are, no matter how lost you feel. You can return to it again and again. Tonight, as you rest quietly, you might offer this simple prayer: I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And with these words, feel the shelter, the warmth, the soft embrace of awakening, of community, of love. And know you are held, you are safe, you are home. You've walked with the Buddha tonight, seen his life, heard his truths, felt the quiet power of the path. And now, as the journey nears its gentle close, we arrive at a place both simple and profound. The journey continues gently. The path is not a straight line. It is a spiral, a dance, a breath. You move forward. You return. You fall. You rise. And in each moment, awakening waits. It is not somewhere else, not after tomorrow. not beyond the next life. It is here, in your breath, in your heart, in your softening. You don't need to become someone different. You only need to remember. Remember who you are beneath the stories, beneath the craving and clinging, beneath the suffering and fear. You are open space. You are clear awareness. You are the stillness behind the storm. The Buddha's teaching is not to make you perfect. It is to make you free. Free to be human. Free to be gentle. Free to be awake. And this freedom comes slowly, like dawn, like a flower blooming in silence. It comes with practice, with patience, with kindness. So as you rest tonight, know this: you are enough, exactly as you are, right now. The path is waiting, not for you to reach it, but for you to return to it, again and again, with each breath, with each moment, with each gentle choice. So close your eyes, breathe softly, let go, and know you are awake, you are free, you are home. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a peaceful night.